This is After the Fire, a series about history after the events. Each season follows the long relationship between two worlds. Most encounters that change history do not announce themselves. They don't arrive as events. They arrive as ordinary movement. A merchant taking a familiar route, a monk travelling with a bundle of manuscripts, a sailor watching the sky for the first turn of the winds. Between Iran and India, this is often how the relationship deepened, not through conquest, but through repetition. If this speaks to you, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and tell us what you think. Chapter 1. The Monsoon that made a corridor. The Indian Ocean did not belong to one empire. It belonged to the wind. By the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE, sailors had learned how to ride the monsoon system with confidence. In summer, winds pushed ships from the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf toward India. In winter, they carried them back. That rhythm created a reliable corridor long before any governments could properly control it. We can glimpse that world through a practical, almost humble text, the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, written in the 1st century CE. It reads like a guidebook for traders. Which ports to stop at, what goods to expect, what local rulers might demand. The details matter precisely because they are not romantic. They reveal a working system. Indian ports on the western coast were part of that system. Baruch, known to the Greeks and Romans as Barigaza, appears as a major node. Farther south, Muziris in the Malabar region becomes almost legendary in later accounts, a place associated with pepper, pearls, and long-distance exchange. From the Iranian side, the Persian Gulf and its coastal cities played the other half of the rhythm. Trade moved through maritime networks that included Persian, Arab, and other communities. And later, under the Sassanian Empire, Persian merchant presence in the broader Indian Ocean world became stronger. This is where unexpected encounter begins. Not as a dramatic meeting, but as a repeated one. The same sailors seeing the same coastline every season. The same merchants hearing the same languages in the same markets. Familiarity accumulating without anyone declaring that it mattered. And once familiarity exists, history can travel quietly inside it. Chapter 2. Gandhara, where ideas changed. Clothing. While the sea carried goods, the northwest carried something harder to measure. Ideas. Between the Iranian plateau and northern India lay regions that functioned as interfaces for centuries, places such as Gandhara and Bactria. Here, languages overlapped, political authority shifted, communities learned to live with layered identities because geography demanded it. One of the most enduring results was the transformation of Buddhist culture as it moved outward from India. After the Mauryan period and into the early centuries CE, Buddhist monasteries and teachers travelled along these corridors towards Central Asia. They did not travel with armies. They travelled with patrons, caravans, and networks of pilgrimage. In the Kushan period, especially under rulers like Kanishka in the 2nd century CE, this corridor becomes clearer. The Kushan world connected Central Asia with northern India in a way that made translation normal. Coins, inscriptions, and artistic styles show a realm where multiple religious symbols could appear side by side, not as confusion, but as governance. This is where the famous Gandharan artistic tradition emerges. Buddhist imagery rendered with visual languages shaped by Greek and Iranian influences. draped robes, naturalistic bodies, a different sense of proportion and presence. The Buddha does not become Greek. The Buddha becomes portable, recognizable across cultural distance. What makes this an unexpected encounter is that it is not just exchange, it is transformation through proximity. An idea meets a new environment, and it changes clothing. It remains itself, but it learns a new way to appear. And this matters for Iran, India, not because Iran became Buddhist, but because the corridor between them became a space where worldviews could cross without being conquered. Chapter 3. The Persianate stranger who felt familiar. Centuries later, encounter took another form. It became linguistic. From roughly the 10th century onward, Persian increasingly served as a language of high culture, administration, and courtly life across large parts of South Asia. This was not simply Iran arriving in India. It was a Persianate layer emerging through dynasties rooted in the eastern Iranian world, in Afghanistan, and in the broader zone between. When Persian becomes a language of power in places like Ghazni and later Delhi, it does something subtle. It turns the relationship between Iran and India into a relationship that can be lived through words. Poetry, bureaucracy, chronicles, and etiquette become vehicles of continuity. This is another kind of unexpected encounter. A language enters a new political world and becomes at home there, not as a foreign tongue imposed by conquest alone, but as a tool adopted because it carries prestige, administrative clarity, and cultural authority. By the time the Mughal Empire rises in the 16th century, Persianate culture is deeply embedded in the way power is written and remembered in India. Iran does not rule India, yet Iranian cultural forms are everywhere in the architecture of legitimacy. So an Iranian courtly world appears inside India without requiring an Iranian empire. A stranger arrives and feels familiar. That is what soft power looks like before the modern term exists. The encounters that were planned, wars, campaigns, proclamations, often ended when power moved on. But these other encounters endured. The Monsoon corridor, the Gandhara interface, the Persianate layer. They did not erase difference. They made difference livable. And perhaps this is the quietest truth about Iran and India. That much of what connected them was never meant to be history. It was simply life repeating until repetition became structure. Stay with us, like, subscribe, and tell us what you think.